So once you've spent a few minutes doing that and you feel quite comfortable that you're able to sew a perfectly straight line, I'm going to show you now how to do curves. So curves are quite different. They need to be very smooth and not angular. So you don't want a spiky curve. Curves are more common than you may think. You have curves on necklines, armholes, pockets, cuffs, or if you want to do craft work, make teddy bears, make bags, there's lots of curves. So it's important to be able to sew a smooth, continuous curve without having jaggy bits or wobbly bits. So it's the same principle really. So now if you get yourself another piece of paper or cut the edge into some curves. So probably if you were sewing something which had a lot of curves, the seam allowance may not be 15mm, it may be more like 10, which is 1 centimetre. So I've selected the line for the 10mm seam allowance, and I'm going to, again, as we did with the straight line, you're going to follow the edge of the paper, so you should end up with a parallel stitched line. So just keep the paper moving. If you feel at any stage you're not going to be able to move it quickly enough, use the hand wheel at the end, put the needle down, lift the presser foot, you can slightly turn the paper, lower the presser foot back and continue. Again, you need to keep it slow and steady, and you can even use the hand wheel to do 1 or 2 stitches to take you round a very tight curve or a difficult area. So again, I'm going to leave the needle in the fabric and turn. Again, it's more what's happening a little bit ahead of the needle. You have to anticipate what's coming. Then I have another curve here, so again another tight one. Needle in, rotate, all the time lining the edge of the paper with your 10mm mark. Again, anytime you feel that it's a very tight turn you can't make, do 1 or 2 stitches by hand, take you around the tightest part and then resume. And you should end up with a lovely line that follows your edge. So spend a while practicing some curves until again you feel that it's becoming flowing, that they're even and accurate, and that will help with your control of the machine. And now I'm going to show you how to turn a corner. So you're happy with your curves. Corners are quite important as well, and they can also be quite tricky. Sometimes you may find that the corner gets a bit cut off, in which case it won't be nice and sharp and crisp. Other times you can sew right past the corner and miss the turn, and again the only way to remedy that is to unpick it. So you want to avoid doing both. So if you think what we want to do is actually get the needle right on that point, so we can rotate, turn. However, there is a possibility that the needle will land just short of the corner, but the next stitch will take you past. So I'm going to show you now how to cope with that. So we're going to pop our paper in the machine. So this time I'm actually lining it up. I'm going to cheat basically. We're going to sew down the line. Now this isn't a real life test because you wouldn't be sewing down a line unless you drew the line on yourself. You would really be following the edge of your fabric again. But this time, just for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to try that. So I'm going to line up again. I'm just going to start to sew, but I'm going to stop a little bit early. I'm going to stop with 1 or 2 stitches to go. Right, I'm going to stop. So this gives me time to have a look, and I can think and do 1 or 2 hand stitches if I have to. So let's see. So I've stopped now with the needle just hovering above my fabric. It's slightly short of the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the presser foot. This is a cheat. It's a little tip I developed. Don't know where I learned it from. I'm just going to push the fabric forward just a slight, I mean it's like about 1 millimetre or less. Just so when I put the needle down, it lands exactly bang on the corner. So what I've done in effect is I've lengthened that last stitch without having to twiddle with these knobs. So I've left the needle in position. I can lift the presser foot, turn my fabric, and you can see there I'm exactly on the corner, so I can continue. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 more stitch, and again 1 more stitch is slightly too short. Let's see if we can get another one. No, another one's going to take me past. So if you think it's going to take you well past, again the opposite, I'm going to pull back a bit. So again I've shortened that last stitch. So by using this technique you can actually get a very accurate and very clean, crisp point, which is not so important if you're doing regular work, but if you want to do something in a very fine fabric, working in bridal wear or tailoring, it's absolutely crucial that you actually hit the mark. And I feel that if you learn these finer techniques early on, then your work will always look, you know, ahead and shoulders above everything else. You know, why wait 20 years to learn this? Might as well learn it now. So again, practice, draw yourself some lines. They can be 90-degree lines or they can just be zigzags, doesn't matter. Spend some time practicing that technique. And if you want to do a real life example, if we were sewing down a piece of fabric with no markings on it, again we revert back down to our fabric edge as our guide and our 15 line. So if I was sewing down a line and I had a corner here to turn, this is what you do. So I need to anticipate my turning point. Now that again there's no markings, so you have to teach your eye to judge. And if you want to stop early and do the last 2 or 3 stitches by hand, that's actually fine. Now what experience has taught me using these machines is that this line where the plastic bobbin cover meets the metal here is exactly 15 millimeters in front of the needle. So that's what I can use as my guide. If you have a look at your sewing machine, there may be something that you can use as well. Otherwise you'll just have to use your eye. So I reckon I can get 1 more stitch. There we go. So I'm going to put 1 more stitch in there. I'm going to stop. Again, pivot round your needle. When I move round the corner, my paper is lined up with the 15 mark. And I can go in my merry way and carry carry on. So there I have a nice neat stitched corner. Now I'm going to show you how to wind thread onto a bobbin. So the first thing, which is very important, is that you only use bobbins which are the dedicated bobbins for the make and model of your machine. They may all look alike to the naked eye, but they are not. They may vary slightly between the diameter, the height, and the circumference, and if you use the wrong bobbin it can actually damage your machine. So I'm going to put the thread on. To remove this thread holder, put my thread on. You may have a vertical thread spindle, that doesn't matter. Just make sure that your thread is secured. And I'm going to take it round this little metal spring here. This is a tension spring to wind the bobbin. So it's important that the thread is neatly tucked underneath, so there's a bit of resistance onto the thread. That will ensure that your bobbin is tightly wound. Then I'm going to take the end of the thread and poke it through from the inside of the bobbin to the outside. Then I'm going to wind it around a few times just to secure the end of that thread. So you don't want a great big leg of thread hanging out. Then I'm going to place the bobbin on the bobbin winder spindle. So push it down firmly and just check that the bobbin is going to wind clockwise, so the thread is going to go onto the bobbin. So I'm going to push this to the right, which will engage it with the winding mechanism on the machine, and I'm going to move, if I pull out the end wheel, I'm going to pull this out, and what this does is it declutches the needle, so the needle will now not move. It disengages the drive which feeds the needle from the motor. Different machines handle this in different ways. Some machines you don't need to do anything separately, that once you've moved the bobbin winder over it automatically does it, but check your manual, it will tell you. And sometimes this threading system here will vary from one machine to another too. So what I'm showing you is a general technique, it may not apply to your specific machine. So all I'm going to do now is just pop the machine on, obviously, and press the foot pedal, and that means my bobbin is going to wind. So you just wind as much thread on as you need. It will automatically stop once the thread gets to this point, it will automatically cut out. Once you've wound as much as you want, reverse that process, so push this back to the left, remove this bobbin, take this out of this tension dial, then we can cut our thread. So again, machines actually come equipped with a little thread cutter. On this one it is round the side, so round here, and pull it through.